So what I suggest we do is the following. Table by table, maybe send us your messages and your questions. And then we'll have an overall sort of review. You pick up the questions that you feel more at ease with. And if they are not answered, then, coffee is there within 15 minutes, and you can continue, all right? So it's the beginning of a further conversation. It's just to raise the questions, okay? And to have your comments. All right. All right. Thank you, Lena. Do you have any?
Okay, I was a bit provoked, so now I'm going to be provocative. If I recalculated some of the figures to my municipality, it would be like saying, here's 1 million krona of the 1.8 billion krona I control every year. It's almost a little bit like an insult. It's like toy money. You can toy over here with a little bit of money, but you're not really impacting anything significant. And it becomes a lot of infrastructure issues, painting street art or putting up a bench or a water fountain or, not that those are not important, but it's a little bit of like a democratic varnish, not really influencing things properly.
Okay.
So am I right? Am I wrong? What should we do about it?
Thank you. At the table, one comment or one question? Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to say something?
I have a question mostly to Josh. I'm curious about how the exact processes of involving undocumented migrants, because I worked a lot with undocumented migrants in the city council in Gothenburg, but I'm just interested in like how the process, how you make that happen. Yeah.
Yep. Another question, Lina. Another question here. Yep. Closer. Yes, that's much simpler. Yeah, it avoids your walking.
Curious was the word. I'm curious about your experience of calculating the recurrent and maintenance cost of the investments financed by the participatory budgeting and to what extent that influences the decisions. And further, if you have experience of mixing investment projects with projects that are directly focusing on activities already going on. I took the example of adding one more school nurse to the school.
Excellent. Yep. There was another question here. Yep.
Thank you very much for sharing your experience. I can imagine it's hard to be there. I would like to know, if it's possible, I would like to understand how it is the voting in Paris. I'm sorry, I understood there is a big part which presential, but I didn't understood if it's possible to make like 2 or 3 votes or just online or online and presential. I'm sorry, I didn't understood that. And I would like to know about New York, if it's possible to explain what that money represents in the global money. I'm not being so provocative, but I would like to understand how much that represents as a deal. Thank you.
Any other questions, doubts? No?
Your table?
No?
Hi, thank you.
Yeah, there was one here. Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
all right. Sorry for that. Wow.
There's a question for Josh. I'm thinking about this PB. I think it's a good project, and I think it could be a way in for people living outside. Have you done any research to find out what the outcome can be for these areas? If in the future, I don't know how long you've been around, but if you can see a historical change in people wanting to participate in the rest of societies, if you understand what I mean. Thank you.
Very good. And the last one here. Yes, please.
We were just discussing when you said that the implementation is the most important part, how you managed to establish that the voting is about project that is possible to implement at all? Just that the question for us.
Okay, I think that these are serious questions to be addressed. So, all right, you have maybe 2 minutes each, just to give an answer. And don't pick up all the questions, just the one that you feel more at ease or feel more concerned with. All right, who starts? Coline, you're all right.
I will start to answer for the question who was about Paris. So, the vote. Every Parisian can vote. All people who live in Paris can vote, regardless their age or their nationality. They can vote online or offline. In both cases, they have 5 votes for district projects. They choose their district, the district they live, the district they vote, the district they like the most, that's their choice, and 5 projects for whole city. If you vote online, you have to choose and to pick and to check, it's okay, I want to vote for those 5. And if you vote offline, there are people in the street, they explain what is PB, what's for, what are the projects, and you can choose 5 projects for district and 5 projects for Parisian level. No. What you choose, but we don't check. So it's about trust. We can't check because we don't have a list of people who live in Paris. We have electoral lists, but in electoral lists there are also adult people and French people, and we want everyone to vote. And we can't check in the streets if people are effectively Parisian and if they have already voted. So we say we trust people, and if one people is cheating, it's not a big deal.
Yeah, thank you. That's very clear, and that was the sense I understand. Josefa?
Well, what should I say? Continuing, our voting process is multi-channel by online and face-to-face. And it's for all, yes, and we assure that that person won't vote more than she or he should do, because we join the number of ID and telephone number. Even the migrant population and others can vote, and even if they have no, even so, the ID numbers, in face-to-face, they can't vote and present a proposal, of course. More, I think, can pick up all the things, what I left.
Yeah. No, it's fine. It's fine. Let's continue. Yeah, Josh.
Thank you.
So the question of how to engage undocumented immigrants, I think 3 things that have been most helpful. One is translation. So the ballot is translated into around 9 languages, even if, so that people can read it in their own language. 2 is pay people from the community to do outreach in that community. So for example, in one district, there's a very large Bangladeshi population, and so we pay someone from the Bangladeshi community to go to restaurants, to the mosques, to the places where that community is, and talk with people informally about the process and get them involved. Or we pay organizations to do that. So that's critical. Let me see, those 2 things. Oh, and the third thing, which we changed this year, is to not ask for identification to verify if you can vote. Especially in the US now, a lot of people are afraid to give identification because they're afraid of being deported, being kicked out of the country under Trump. And so we decided that it was more important to enable more people to vote than to protect against the very small chance of possible risk of double voting. As in Paris, it's not as big a deal. It's more important that we have more people vote. Yeah. And so we asked them to sign a sheet of paper saying that they live in the district, and that's all.
Very good.
And I can respond to the question about the amount of money
sure.
as well, maybe. There are a couple questions about this is not a ton of money, which, a few answers. One, you're right, it should be more money. I think the answer to that should be, it should be more money, not we shouldn't do this. Two, it's percent of what budget. So it's not the whole budget, because the whole budget isn't discretionary. You're not deciding on the whole budget anyway. Most of any budget is decided in advance each year for salaries, for required maintenance. So it's of the discretionary budget, of the budget that is actually in play, that's actually up for debate. And so then you look at what is that actual budget. In New York, for example, these are city council funds from council members. Each council member has around $5 million. And so $1 or $2 million per council member is a significant amount of that money. It's a very small part of the overall budget. It's a significant amount of the budget for this program and for this institution. And that's a place to start.
Yep, very good.
About infrastructures, in the case of Madrid, for example, you can vote about any kind of proposal. So it's very common that the participatory budget usually is only the investment part of the budget. But in the case of Madrid, you can vote about goods and services, you can vote about line of subsidies. So any kind of spend that we can do in the city council, you can propose it. And that's very important because a lot of very interesting proposals are not about fixing a street or something like this. About if it's toy money, it's something like this, it is, absolutely. It's really a small percentage of the budget. Even in Madrid, when there's a lot of money, 100 million euros, that's around the 3% of the total budget. And there's no reason to do that. But at the same time, it looks like it's almost impossible to go much larger. If you check participatory budgeting all over the world, you never see like the 50% of the budget is decided by the citizens.
Yes.
But it's very strange. I mean, it's really difficult to convince the politician of any city to do this kind of change. This is what I'm saying, that even if you pretend to be super ambitious, there's a limit on the process that is really difficult to go much further. This is why you should complement it with other processes. The example I was explaining about this citizen initiative that was voted in Madrid about the sustainability plan of the city, it's lines of actions to produce changes for the next 15 years. That involves much more than 100 million euros, much more money. And it was easy. People just had to make a proposal, gather enough support, and there was like a referendum, and it was approved. So it's really important to have much other channels of participation than participatory budgeting. If you check the rest of the world, the places where they have very successful participatory budgeting, they still have a lot of inequalities, problems with the political system, so it's not the panacea. It's very important, it's a very good mechanism, but it should complement it with other things. About maintenance, that was commented before, it's important to understand that, for example, in the case of Madrid, even if every year we decide about 100 million euros, the amount of money that we spend the next year is not 100 million euros, because there are projects that needs 2-3 years, something like this. So you always have some part of the money that you are not really spending, that you are saving it. And that could compensate the project that needs, after the construction, money to keep them running. So at the end, you can really compensate. You have not to be so worried about that. And about ID, this identification thing and so on, this is also very important. In all the cities that are using the project, it's very different. Some cities, they have the national ID number, some cities don't and so. So it's flexible. There are cities that, for example, ask just for a cell phone, and this is like the way to identify the people. Some cities don't ask for anything. It can be changed depending on the city or what can they do.
Mm-hmm. All right, thanks a lot. I would just like, as a wrapping up exercise, to see what is unique here in relation to the 30 years of PB that we have, and that I've been part of somehow. I thought very interesting what you mentioned in Paris or in Madrid, for instance, on having this sort of different money for different districts, this calculation. Because then we see that PB is a way to make what was called originally in Porto Alegre reverting social priorities. And you are doing that. When I listen, Coline telling us, hey, there is a PB which is for the low-income neighborhoods out of the common pocket. Again, we are reverting social and spatial realities, and that was part of the doxa, the original ideas when the Workers' Party took over in 88. And I think that, and we could continue, I don't want to expand. So for me, that's a very important idea. Another one, which is very interesting and which links up, is that You say 70% for the district, 30% for the central. Paris, the same. I don't know who copied whom, but anyhow. All right. Josefa, what you said is that you have, she called it structural projects, okay? What does it mean? From the participation and democratic point of view, it's central to observe that you have what I call community projects at community level and citizen at city level, citizen participation. And I do believe that real democracy is at the same time a democracy of proximity at the neighborhood level, improving my day-to-day life, but also going out of my ghetto for those in the ghettos, or going out of my neighborhood to think the city as a whole. And this double movement, which is so well thread, and I hope that one day we'll have that, you know. You have the most important one, which is the basis, you know, but I hope that one day we'll have that. And this is fundamental. To get a share of money, it has been ongoing for the 30 years, a share of money between both. And the thing that we didn't realize, we couldn't do during the 15 first years of PB, and that you are, I mean, putting us on here, is your capacity and willingness and vision to work with the excluded, with migrants. I remember that 2 years ago, your first project was to work with solidarity with the refugees and homeless. I mean, in Paris, when, you know, France, xenophobia is there, the National Front is there. Who was against? I mean, the voters from PB. This is symbolically very, very powerful. Your efforts to work also with the excluded, your 9 languages, I mean, with so little money, but it's symbolically a change to work with with those who had no power. And it's for sure, I would like to join what you said about money. One of the big challenges, and I think that we need to be ambitious, is really, as you say, real money, real power, real money. So let's think about real money, and then there will be real power. And that's a true ambition. And I agree with you that everything cannot be done. But when I look at the figures 30 years ago, when you were below $100 per inhabitant per year on the table, you were not a real PB. It was about participatory budgeting with a big, big B. And what I see is that today it's more on democracy and much less on resources. And I think that we need to be ambitious and to have real money, but real power. Okay, thanks a lot. It was incredible in 1 hour and a half to have you. Thank you for your input and your attention. And I join the applause for these guys.